Hmm. All right, we'll go into number two in the SEC West. Texas A&M, just missed the college football playoff, and certainly seems like Jimbo's got that thing right where he wants it, and he's talking a big game. He's all nothing but bravado there in College Station this year. So, what would it take in your mind? Short of something disastrous happened for Alabama, but what will it take for the Aggies, something within their program to take that next step and potentially win the West this year?
I think the first thing that jumps to my mind is the last time that Alabama lost this division, it was because of Joe Burrow's emergence at LSU, which transformed that offense. And when you look at A&M this year, new quarterback, 4 new starters on the offensive line. And Jimbo does a great job of developing quarterbacks. His track record at Florida State and so far at Texas A&M is very good. But throwing a new quarterback in there with 4 new starters on the offensive line and needing guys to develop at receiver is going to be, I think it's going to be a challenge for Texas A&M to get all that up to speed and try to beat Alabama. I think maybe if Kellen Mond was back and that offensive line was back this year, maybe that conversation for how high Texas A&M is a little bit different. They may be another spot or a little closer to the top 5. But I think for A&M, the defense is loaded. I think it's just all about the offense. It's how fast does the quarterback situation fall into place and the offensive line. If they can solve those two things, the game against Alabama is not till October, which gives them time. But that will determine just how high they can climb in the West this year.
Now, I don't want to ask you the same exact thing for LSU, but do you think the Tigers are a legitimate contender to win the West, considering they're bringing back a ton of production, more than I think anyone short of Ole Miss this season in the SEC, and hey, they finished pretty strong last year, beat Florida, beat Ole Miss. So what's the path for LSU? Do you think there's any outside chance that they could win the West this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to at least give them a chance just because they have talent. LSU is not hurting for roster talent. I think we looked at LSU as kind of the biggest wild card in the SEC West this year. They were just a really hard team to get a read on, and I think it just goes back to coaching. I mean, they're 1 year removed from winning the national championship at the end of the 2019 season, but 2 coordinators that are first-time play callers combined with question marks on both sides of the ball. But if it all falls into place, LSU is going to be much better than where we have them finishing, which is 17th. I like the fact they have a lot of experience on both lines of scrimmage. I just think that it's really hard for their defense to be as bad as it was last year when you have guys like Derek Stingley and Eli Ricks and the depth that they have up front. So I suspect we will see a much improved LSU team, and getting Texas A&M, getting Florida at home is a huge plus in their favor. But road trips to Ole Miss and Alabama, I think they're going to fall short. I think they're going to be better, but I don't know how much, just because they're just so much of a wild card right now with all the changes and kind of question marks kind of surrounding this program.
Now, how big of a separation do you have between that next tier in the West? Because we're looking at Ole Miss. That's where Athlon's got Ole Miss 4, Auburn 5, Arkansas 6, and Mississippi State 7, but all within a 2-game record here. Only 1 game separating those, if you want to break it down by SEC prediction. So the way I look at this, I mean, good luck predicting this one, because I think you could mismatch, any of these 4, basically any order you want, and I would buy it. So what are your thoughts on those 4 teams?
I think the first thing is, I think there is a little bit of a gap between LSU and Ole Miss, but I could be persuaded that if Ole Miss improves defensively, that perhaps they could sneak up the standings a little bit by a spot or 2. Really like this offense. Lane Kiffin and Matt Corral are going to score a ton of points this year. And yes, they are losing Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah, but they've got playmakers. It's just all about how far that defense improves. So I like Ole Miss at 4. We have Auburn at 5. They are another hard team to figure out, just because it's a transition year under a new coach. How far does Brian Harsin develop Bo Nix or TJ Finley? Offensive line's been an issue at Auburn too. Their schedule, I think, is kind of difficult. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Penn State and non-conference play, Georgia and not and crossover play, and then you have to still face the top 4 teams that we have projected in the West. So I think Auburn's a bit of a mystery. I think Brian Harson's a good hire. I just wonder how fast it will fall into place. And those bottom 2 teams, man, I suspect Arkansas and Mississippi State are going to be really difficult outs for a lot of people in the league this year. I think both are getting better, and especially Arkansas, just the fact that they were so much better last year under Sam Pittman. I think if they were in the East, I would probably pick them third this year. But because of the West being so difficult, we have them 6th and 7th. So I kind of separate Ole Miss. I think they're a little bit better than Auburn and the other 2 teams. But you're right. I mean, something for Arkansas, Mississippi State breaks right, and maybe they're a little bit better than we think. And I could easily see them sneak into 5th and try to get into that top 25 to 30 range.